treat me right, then I stick by your side. Take a look at me. Promises I know I made many times before. That girl, Bell Biv DeVoe, act like you know we came to party. Get on the floor.
And what year did Candy Girl come out?
1983.
I went out last night. Something in your eyes is giving me a sign. Girl, you see that I got to call. You run, and you run. So let's have some fun, yeah. Ronnie, Ricky, Mike. People come, people go. Mike, Ralph, and Johnny too.
Bill, Biv, DeVoe.
It's driving me out of my mind. Girl, I work this 9 to 5 to buy you the things that you like. You can do me in the morning, you can do me in the night. Put your new dress on, get fly, say hello, girl, cause it's a party. So tell me why you're playing games.
So before the Fresh Fest, y'all had a tour that Fat Boys was on, Run DMC was on.
Bell Biv DeVoe was never supposed to be anything more than a short-term project. It was meant to be a temporary spin-off from New Edition while the group figured out its next move. But what happened instead was something nobody saw coming. They ended up changing R&B forever. Their debut song, Poison, became an instant classic. Their style, energy, and confidence were unmatched, and they completely took over the New Jack Swing era. They proved they didn't need Bobby Brown, Ralph Tresvant, or Johnny Gill to succeed. But if they were doing so well, what really caused everything to fall apart? Behind the flashy outfits, hit records, and smooth dance moves, Bell Biv DeVoe had a secret. Why couldn't they keep up their success after their first album? Why did Ricky Bell come dangerously close to losing everything? And did the music industry deliberately push them out? Ricky Bell has finally revealed the truth about what happened to BBD, and trust me, it's nothing like what most people think. A lot of people assume BBD was just a quick side project, a fun little break from New Edition that worked for a short time but wasn't built to last. That couldn't be further from reality. Bell Biv DeVoe wasn't an accident, it was their way of surviving. By the late 80s, New Edition was falling apart. Bobby Brown had already been kicked out for being too wild. Ralph Tresvant was considering going solo. The group's future was uncertain. Then Johnny Gill joined, and suddenly, the label's focus shifted toward a more mature R&B sound, leaving Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, and Ronnie DeVoe sidelined. They had a choice: sit around and wait for New Edition to figure things out, or take control of their own future. That's when legendary producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis came up with a game-changing idea. Instead of trying to turn them into another traditional R&B group, they suggested something different. Instead of singing polished ballads like Ralph and Johnny, they could mix R&B with hip-hop, a combination no one had really done before. Instead of competing vocally with their former bandmates, they would focus on an edgier, street-smart image. This wasn't just another New Edition spin-off, it was something entirely new. And then Poison dropped. The song wasn't just a hit, it was a movement. New Jack Swing was already gaining popularity, but BBD brought a fresh, rebellious energy to R&B that nobody had seen before. Their first album sold over 4 million copies. They had 5 hit singles in a row. Bell Biv DeVoe had officially become more than just an experiment. They were the new face of R&B. But here's where things got complicated. Even though they were selling millions of records, touring the world, and dominating radio stations, the music industry never fully accepted them. Most people think Bell Biv DeVoe only happened because New Edition took a break, but the truth is, BBD was a survival plan. By 1989, the music scene was shifting fast. Hip-hop was starting to take over the charts. Labels were moving away from polished boy bands and looking for artists with a grittier, street-oriented sound. Artists like Bobby Brown, Keith Sweat, and Guy were proving that New Jack Swing was the future, and that's exactly where BBD fit in. They weren't smooth R&B vocalists like Ralph and Johnny. They weren't solo bad boys like Bobby. They were something different, an R&B group with hip-hop energy that could rap, sing, and dance. Then they recorded Poison, a song so unique that even their own record label didn't know what to do with it at first. Executives hated it. They thought the beat was too aggressive. They thought the lyrics were too raw. They didn't believe people would take BBD seriously. But once the song hit the airwaves, it was an instant classic. Biv DeVoe wasn't just another R&B group anymore. They had redefined the genre. Of course, with that level of success came pressure. Could they do it again? Would the industry take them seriously as artists or just treat them like a one-hit wonder? And how long could they last in a business that was always looking for the next big thing? What happened next almost destroyed them, especially Ricky Bell. BBD's rise was unbelievably fast. One minute, they were the forgotten members of New Edition. The next, they had one of the biggest songs in the world. But with all that success, came intense pressure. The industry didn't believe they could last. Record labels treated them like a temporary trend instead of real artists. Critics called them a one-hit wonder, doubting whether they could ever match the success of Poison. And behind the scenes, things were getting messy. The first issue? Pressure to stay on top. When Poison went quadruple platinum, the label wanted another hit fast. They rushed BBD into making a second album, hoping to capitalize on the hype. But there was a problem. You can't force creativity. Their second album, Hootie Mac, didn't get the same attention as their debut. The production felt rushed, the marketing wasn't as strong, and the industry had already started looking for the next big thing. The album sold decently, but it didn't have the same impact. Just like that, the same industry that had hyped them up was suddenly quiet. The second issue? Ricky Bell's personal struggles. The stress of staying relevant, dealing with fame, and constantly having to prove himself was too much. On the surface, Ricky looked like a superstar living his dream. But behind the scenes, he was struggling with addiction. He later admitted that during BBD's peak, his life was spiraling out of control. The money was coming in fast, but no one was teaching them how to manage it. The industry was making millions off their music, but no one cared about their well-being. With all the drama still going on with New Edition, it felt like BBD had no real support system. Ricky turned to drugs to cope. At first, he thought he had it under control. Before he knew it, it was controlling him. And the worst part? No one in the industry cared enough to help. The third issue? The music business only cares about what's hot right now. The same record labels that made millions off BBD weren't invested in their long-term success. The industry did what it always does, use artists while they're hot, and then move on. By the mid-90s, New Jack Swing was fading. Hip-hop and R&B were evolving. Artists like Jodeci, Mary J. Blige, and Boyz II Men were taking over. Biv DeVoe found themselves stuck between two worlds. They were too edgy to be a traditional R&B group, but not hip-hop enough to keep up with the rise of hardcore rap. When New Jack Swing started fading, the industry didn't believe BBD could survive. Instead of helping them reinvent their sound, they were pushed aside like many other artists from that era. Teddy Riley struggled to stay relevant, Guy faded from the mainstream, and Keith Sweat had to change his sound to stay afloat. BBD got caught in the same cycle. Their label didn't promote their newer music, radio stations stopped playing them, award shows stopped calling, and mainstream fans slowly forgot about them. That's when things truly fell apart. Without the same level of success, Ricky Bell's personal struggles worsened. By the late 90s, his drug addiction was out of control. He was spending thousands of dollars a week, hiding it from his family, his bandmates, and even himself. At his lowest, addiction mattered more to him than his career. He nearly lost everything. The industry didn't step in to help. No record executives checked on him. No friends intervened. No support from those who had once made millions from his talent. That's how the industry works. They push artists until they break, then move on to the next act. BBD had already been replaced, and if they didn't fight back, they would become another forgotten R&B group. By the late 90s, Ricky Bell was at rock bottom. BBD was no longer the chart-topping group they once were, and the industry had moved on. Ricky hid his addiction, but behind closed doors, he was spiraling. He was broke. A platinum-selling artist with nothing. No one had taught him financial management, and when the hits stopped, so did the money. Addiction mixed with financial struggles created a dangerous situation. He admitted that at his lowest, he didn't care if he lived or died. That was when he hit his breaking point. His addiction wasn't just destroying his career, it was ruining his marriage. His wife, Amy, had stood by him, but she was running out of options. One night, after another downward spiral, she gave him an ultimatum: get help, or she was leaving. That moment changed everything. Ricky realized if he didn't fight for his life now, he wouldn't have a life to fight for. He chose to heal. He checked into rehab, faced his demons, and finally found clarity. But his redemption wasn't just about recovery. He came back stronger. While Ricky healed, BBD faced an industry that had written them off. No radio play, no record deals, no major tours. Instead of giving up, they embraced their legacy, performed anywhere they could, and connected with loyal fans. Slowly, things changed. Their music remained timeless. Social media introduced them to a new generation, and Poison kept playing at parties. The industry had to take notice. Ricky now shares his story, raising awareness about addiction and mental health while continuing to perform. In 2017, BBD made a stunning comeback, releasing 3 Stripes, their first album in 16 years. Unlike most comebacks, it worked. It debuted at #1 on iTunes R&B charts featuring SWV, Boys II Men, and Dougie Fresh. At the same time, BET's The New Edition story became a cultural event, drawing 29 million viewers. It reminded the world that BBD wasn't just a spin-off, they were legends. Their music charted again, major bookings followed, and they took control of their careers.